My friends and I have recently decided to get into the Warhammer skirmish game of Kill Team. As a seasoned Grey Knights player, I could scrounge together a squad from my existing collection and be good to go. Unfortunately, Grey Knights are still Compendium Army, which means they're trash, and I wouldn't have an excuse to make something new. So, looking to my options, I settled on the Veteran Guardsmen Kill Team, and while those new Krieg models look pretty nice, I'm a cheap SOB, so buying something new scares me. Instead, I decided to work with something a bit older. And since this box comes with an excessive amount of models, by today's standards, I figured I wouldn't just do a single veteran kill team, but do all 18 options the Veteran Guardsmen can take with some kit bashing and customization. So here's a showcase of the modifications I did for all the models. Starting with some of the simpler models, these four will act as my Trooper Veteran. I had assembled and primed these a long time ago, so it was minimal customization outside of the severely injured soldier using his laser gun as a crutch. What I added to them, and to the rest of my Kill Team models, is a green stuff Imperial Aquila to the shoulder. To do this consistently, I got an old pewter Aquila and created a cast of it using Oyumaru. Sometimes called blue stuff. It's great for casting small bits and works well with both green stuff and milliput. Using the one mold, I was able to cast 2 Aquilas a day, so it only took a little over a week to get enough for the whole kill team. Because I had this old pewter medic, there was nothing to customize. He won't be confused for any other model, so I left him as is. To complement his stark lack of customization, I also gave him a boring carved tile base with no interesting features. To be bland is to be beautiful in this case. Moving on. For the comms veteran, I figured he'd be hiding in cover most of the time when playing, so I modeled him in such a position using the crouched legs from the Catachin Heavy Weapon Squad. In addition, I used the braced arm for the Guardsman's special weapons to create a parabolic receiver from sprue, plastic heart, and green stuff, while making sure to fill in the gap of his shoulder from the unnatural arm position. Now he's ready to hide behind terrain and relay orders for the whole game and do nothing else. The hardened vet was mostly stock bits aside from his cybernetic arm. It comes from an old Guardsman command squad. Originally it was holding a power sword with a cable attached to the back, so I carefully cut away the sword and cable, then added a green stuff plate to the elbow and gap filled the armpit. For the base I did square plasticard tiles with a pile of rubble to hide the pin for the model. This way the model can be tilted forwards like it's in a running position and it's about to clock some heretic in the face with its steel fist. I decided to mix parts from a Catachin Heavy Weapons kit, and though they're disproportionate to the rest of him, the arms give him a thicker appearance, which was the goal. Since the Catachin roll with that sleeveless drip, I used some green stuff to give him some shoulder pads, one mimicking the typical Cadian style, and the other being a series of armored tiles tied together with a series of straps leading to the back which holds his laser gun. For his trench club, I cut off what was a mortar shell in his right hand and made a sledgehammer with a plasticard rod, some sprue for the head, and a green stuff loop on the hilt. His base has a carved tile design with a rectangular section cut out. I placed plasticard over the hold to hide the rough edges and placed a series of rods under the base to make pipes. In his power stance, he's ready to assert dominance over the whole galaxy. For the Zealot, I swapped a standard Guardsman head with an old Warhammer Fantasy head with the hat chopped off and some green stuff hair to fill it out. A hand swap and a small piece of plasticard made for a simple uplifting primer. Meanwhile, some small green stuff balls glued together make up a rosary that also covers up the swapped wrist. A small but substantial change is that I sliced the waist to angle the back and get the model to look upwards a bit. I carved a couple tiles into the base and layered a couple plasticard tiles next to them for added height. Taking part of the mortar shell I cut from the bruiser's Catechin arm, I made a small lantern to give this worshipper some holy guiding light, which he can read to his fellow guardsmen before their impending doom. Similar to the Zealot, for the Demolition Veteran I cut away the waist slightly to angle the torso forward instead of backwards. Combined with a pair of crouched legs, this has the model leaning excessively forward. Altering the angle of his arms and adding a tool to his hand has him now focused on planting his explosive. In addition to his laser gun, I also gave him some plasticard rectangles to act as explosive charges with green stuff forming a belt along his back. Of course, a demo man is nothing without his explosive marker, so I made one using some plasticard tube and a couple details to work as a sci-fi powder keg lying in wait. When added to his base, you get a model planting explosives on a pillar waiting for a stupid orc to pass by and set it off. As you can tell by the primer, this model was assembled a while back, but it fit the role right off the bat. Aside from the Aquila, the model uses a variety of bits from the guard I've collected over the years, including a large backpack, a sheathed sword, and a pair of binoculars to give him the look of someone prepared to toss a smoke grenade and call in some artillery. Like the medic, this is another pewter model that already fits the role perfectly. Instead, my focus was on the base, as the model has a large stone the sniper's perched on. So I cut and shaped some insulation foam and built up some rubble around the sniper to help him hide from return fire. Now we're in the gunner variants, and in the case of these models, there wasn't a lot of customization to make since both arms are designed to support the weapon, so instead I wanted to exaggerate their weapon's characteristics. In this case, I created a grenade shell from some plasticard rod, and using a hot glue gun, I created a smoke trail coming from the barrel of the grenade launcher. Combined with the pile of rubble on his base, this angles the model upwards like he's raining frag grenades down upon his enemies. Another pewter model limits my customization options, so I turned towards the base as my solution. Rather than illustrate the Melta's blast, I instead rendered its destructive force in the environment. Using bits of plasticard, I built a plasteel wall, then ripped out the center and lined the edges with hot glue to represent the melted metal left behind. With the model walking through what was an impassable barrier, the devastating power of the meltagun is clearly displayed. Like the grenade launcher, the plasma gun focuses on the projectile. Using a hot glue gun, I created a series of droplets on top of one another. This took a lot of attempts to get right, and I wish I'd used a paper clip in the middle to give it stability, but visually it was successful, and once painted, we've got a stream of glowing hot plasma flying through the air. Before anyone comments that my flamer is in fact a heavy flamer and not the normal flamer, I know, I used the heavy flamer because it looks cooler. For the actual custom flame, I used a paperclip to create a loop coming out of the tip of the flamer, then wrapped the whole thing in cotton soaked in a watered down tacky glue, shaping it to be bulbous on the far end. Once dried, I made sure to reapply the watered down glue a couple more times to make sure any stray cotton fibers were held down. On top of that, before priming all of these models, I made sure to coat the cotton with a layer of gesso as another measure to lock down any stray fibers. Since this large fireball offsets the model's balance, I pinned it to the far edge of the base, setting its center of gravity near the center to keep it all balanced. This was an old squad leader model who fit the bill but still needed some work. I replaced his arms with those of a standard laser gun and then proceeded to remove the laser gun and replace it with a chaos bolter with all of the iconography removed. To denote his leader status, I created a command baton from a flagpole and a decorative bit from the flag and strapped it to his back with some green stuff. Then I added a kind of tippet that draped behind him, which once painted would hopefully give him an air of authority over others. Finally, the Sergeant, the model I definitely went overboard on, but he's the main commander so it feels appropriate. The chest piece is from a fantasy Warhammer model, but the decorative design on the front felt appropriate so I went with that. The legs are almost entirely made from scratch. Carved sprue interior with green stuff sculpted details, with only the boots being from an existing model. The left arm is from the same flag bearer that the Confidant gets its baton from. The right arm was scratch built as I couldn't find a cuff sleeve like the left arm has. The head is the old standard Guardsman Sergeant with its comms, headset, and hair carved away, replaced by a receding hairline and an eyepiece. On his back is a double layered cape with tassels from the flag bearer repurposed as decorative additions. While this definitely leaves the model with a gaudy appearance, I think it's befitting of the arrogance that Imperial Command is known for. And with that, we have my full veteran kill team ready to be decimated by the myriad of horrors the galaxy plans to unleash upon them. Luckily, war is a numbers game, and when you're part of the Guard, you aren't running out of bodies anytime soon. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more miniature related content in the future, and if you're interested in some tabletop role-playing, we've started streaming sessions of Through the Breach over on our video game channel, so maybe check that out if it sounds interesting.